cats.
Oh, well, cheers.
Cheers.
Yes.
Happy new moon.
New moon.
I'm here.
New moon in Aries.
Yes.
Fire. Lots of fire.
Girl.
I've been feeling that.
Okay, so listen. So it's not just new moon in Aries. Today we actually have the sun, the moon, Mercury, and Venus in Aries.
No wonder I've been feeling so much intensity and fire.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yes.
I brought my friend Loni for some. She brought the wine over. We're in our living room. Wine. Yes. I'll share up front. I was a little bit nervous about recording having wine in my hand because I have really immersed myself into different recovery communities, including Alcoholics Anonymous. But that is not my vice. And I wanted to enjoy some wine tonight and just to be open about it. So I put together question roulette to play with Loni this evening. Yes. So I have my very fancy and official Post-it notes.
In yellow and green, so very bright colored.
Yes. And because Loni is temporarily blinded with her glasses,
blinded by the light.
I'm going to let her choose our questions and I will read them.
Okay. Wait, do I get to choose or do I pick from the top?
Pick whatever one you want.
So it can be kind of like tarot.
They're face down and no matter what, she can't see them anyway.
And I'm going to have to answer all of them as it is.
We'll both answer.
The question is, what do you want people to know about you? Oh, that's an interesting starter point. Everything. No, let's see. Well, I mean, okay, the basics. I was born and raised in the Virgin Islands. Mm-hmm. I'm living here in Louisiana now, and I'm falling in love with it each and every day. There's something beautiful, something amazing that happens. And it's pretty magical here. What do I want people to actually know? Okay, well, if I want to go deep with it, I am afraid of being vulnerable.
Ooh.
Yes. We're just going straight vulnerable.
Let's go straight for the jugular.
Yes, straight for the jugular. Yes, vulnerability it's hard for me. I didn't grow up in a vulnerable family. It was always brush it under the rug and get over it. And my question was always like, well, that's great, but how? I've always been a very curious individual. So even as a little girl, I remember thinking, well, how do I just get over it? What was the magical formula? And I always learned to hide my emotions, because I was always accused of being too sensitive, too emotional, to this, to that, to everything under the sun. Yes, I know. And so vulnerability is something that I have been breaking into and learning how to be more of. So even this space is very vulnerable.
Our virtual space.
Yes.
I resonate so much with that. I also struggle with vulnerability and as someone who's in business, part of what we're asked to do as leaders, but also as coaches and as I'm a yoga therapist. And we're very forward facing. So we want to talk about our experience and we want to build connections with people. And it is so difficult to make content based on things that I've experienced rather than some people feel this way, or like oftentimes we all go through this, and to really claim it. It's very vulnerable. And also, so Loni, you're in school for social work presently.
Yes, imagine that. I'm going to school to be a mental health professional, and vulnerability scares the hell out of me. Yet I talk about being vulnerable. I encourage being vulnerable. And I think because, you know, our pain is our purpose, you know, our wounds are what gives us expertise. You know, you don't need a college degree on wounding. You know,
right.
You don't need a college degree on trauma. You can speak from that authentic space. And you know, it's ironic that I've gravitated towards mental health, or maybe not so ironic. I don't know, but I feel like going into that space and being so open and being vulnerable, to use that word again, you know, and that seems to be a hot word these past couple of years. Brene Brown.
Thank you, Brene.
Yes,
we appreciate your work.
Yes, she has really brought that word to the surface. You know, not just vulnerability, but the concept of authenticity. You know, and being in that space of communication, which actually breeds connection. And for the longest time, you know, I call myself a healing perfectionist, you know, and for the longest time, I thought that being perfect was the answer to connection. And I've actually found that it has been in my imperfections that it has fostered more of a sense of connectability more than anything else, and intimacy, you know, and not just intimacy in a romantic sense, but intimacy within friendships, you know, even within work relationships, you know, just being able to connect with people on a deeper level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's been, being that we're in a similar vein and also doing some very deep work on ourselves, we've been able to become very intimately connected as friends over the last, when did we become acquainted? 6 months ago?
Yeah, because I've been here for 6 months. So,
So about 6 months now. But as someone in social work, you've heard of attachment styles. And so part of what I'm presently realizing for myself is that I've studied attachment styles in the past, and I'd always identified as like an anxious bonder. But what I'm coming to see in myself is that I have some conditioning as a woman where I feel very comfortable curating the relationships and making sure that connection is happening. But I'm actually an avoidant. I'm an avoidant who's working towards being secure. And so, do you identify with any of those styles?
100%. I actually find that I flip flop between the anxious and the avoidant. So it all depends on who I'm connecting with. The more someone else is the anxious person, I'm the avoidant. You know, I push away. I'm like, whoa, Nellie, I need some space. And I tend to disconnect when someone else is anxious.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that that's very natural, because even in, I believe it's Dan Siegel who did The Verdict Is In. And that was, if I have my study correct, I might not. This is our second glass of wine.
Well, third for me.
Well, I mean, I'm, you know, it's my third too, but I refilled a little bit.
Oh yeah. Well, who's keeping count?
But that's one of the qualities of these attachment styles, is that they're self-fulfilling prophecies. So the anxious attachment style, being that they're the ones that are chasing after someone and pursuing them and pushing, they will create for themselves the dynamic where their person needs to pull away. So very, very cool realization.
It is, because it's about energy, you know, and we are energetic beings, you know, and kind of like a microwave or sound waves or whatever, you know, we are receiving all of those energetic waves. And so when we feel someone coming towards us at all times, our natural inclination is to lean back, you know. And when we feel someone leaning back, our natural inclination is to lean forward. So it becomes this dance, this push and pull of energy. And so what we need to recognize in those moments is, first of all, which one are we? You know, and secondly, how do we hold space, not just for ourselves, but for the other person? Because we also have to look at the wounding and the traumas of the other person, because it's not just about our experience in any relationship, whether it's friendship or workship or romantic relationships, there's two people involved.
Yeah.
Always two people involved.
I think it's also important not to assume. I think we tend to believe it, or it's not in our conscious awareness that people think differently than we do and they experience differently than we do, because we've only ever had this one orientation to view life from.
That's right.
And so I'm practicing being more vocal about my perspective and also asking when I'm unsure, which is a lot of the time. Like, I do have a crystal ball. It's
of course you do.
But I do own a crystal ball. You can't leave it in the sunlight because it'll light your house on fire.
Oh, well, yes.
But for the purpose of analogy, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what everyone's thinking. And often we rely heavily on assumption to connect dots.
Yes, assumptions. So I remember back in middle school, that word assumptions came up and we broke it down. It makes an ass out of you and me. I don't know if you ever had that, but how poignant and truthful that is, because we project onto other people so many assumptions based on our limited perspective. Because at the end of the day, no matter how enlightened or woke we are, our perspective is limited, because we are only looking through things. We are looking at things through our lens and our lens only. And that is a very small fraction of the whole picture. So the point is to get curious, to get curious. And even when we go in to have the challenging conversations, to talk about how we feel or things that are confusing, we want to aim for that curiosity energy of not pointing fingers or placing blame, but opening the conversation and then being open to receiving what the other person's experience is. And I have found more often than not, the other person's experience is nothing like the stories that I've created in my head. Nothing at all. And that's when I have that moment of, my assumptions are way off. So when we can enter into that vulnerable and authentic conversation where we can share our feelings, but then be open and curious about receiving whatever the person is then going to say next, that then deepens the connection between someone and heightens that intimacy.
Yes.